You're here at the 3 p.m. show, and we got a great show for you. So, we're going to be talking about some of those shadow people, and we're going to be talking about the Alaskan Triangle, and we're going to give you some other information on some strange phenomena. And our guest today is Mike Ricksecker. And let me tell you something, the guy's got the information and he's going to pour it on with us today. So, in the meantime, let me get ready to give us our traditional opening and let's get it going. All right, truth seekers, again, you could have been any other place today, but you start to be right here, right now. And with that being said, I like to take the time to bid you good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the 24 time zones this show airs. And as always, to give you a little information, I'm located in the Jumbo State. This is where those UFOs come out to play. It is a Texas thing, y'all. And as always, things in Texas come pretty big. And that is for us to be the boldest, baffling, belligerent YouTube channel in the world, creating captivating conversations that'll certainly cause controversy. So again, join me and Mike Ricksecker because we're going to hit it hard today. So again, you know this is not for kids, so this is not a PG show. So go ahead and send them back wherever they are right now because what we talk about could cause nightmares and they don't want to be my fault. You're the adult and that's how we're going to roll today. But in the meantime, we're getting closer to the Christmas holidays. And so I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I'm sitting here grounding with my grounding mat down here. And that is to give you the positive energy and all that stuff. So anyway, let me shut this music down a little bit and glad to welcome each and every one of you here. If you're here now for the first time, put a 1 in the comment or I don't know, an alien head or something and let us know you're here. But let me give a couple of people that's in the chat some shout out. And if you want to shout out, say hello in the chat and I'll give you a shout out as well so we can get this show kicked off. But in the meantime, Bunny is here with us. The Newmans is here with us. Magneticus is here with us as well. Javon is here. My good friend Mikey, I'm talking about Mikey. Nike McCoy is here with us as well. And he's calling me the Black Santa, maybe because the beard. But like I said, it's my bag up plan for Christmas holidays to make some extra money. So I was prepared. Dom, what's going on? We're going to be calling you for we can do that show in the sports bar. So we'll do that. Queen of 10,000s is here with us as well. All right, so let's do it. We're going to kick this off. We're going to be talking with Mike, and I'm going to bring him up right now, and so we can kind of get this show off the road. And first, before I do that with Mike, let me give you a few announcements real quick. So as you know, this show is brought to you. We have our shout-out sponsors that's part of the show. So right now, let's give Rebecca with her tarot readings and spiritual guidance, energy healings, and more at Clear Space Bodyworks. Make sure that we all support her channel. Go there or her website, it's saying, and go ahead and just give her a shout out. She got a contact form. Let her know where you guys come from. Also, we have the greatness of Nicola. She has her book out, Big Kids Go to the Potty. So if you got some big kids out there, why don't we get the book? It's at Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, all the different places that you can find your books. Let's support all those who support Why the Big Secret as well. And if you have your own business and you want to do your own shout out here, of course, it's a win-win. You give us a little small contribution and we'll talk about it. And we're going to promote your business. And as you know, we have thousands of people that watch our shows on Forbidden Knowledge. And speaking for that, make sure you get ready for the Awakening Expo coming up in 2023 in the UK. There's going to be a bunch of people that are speaking there. And of course, I'm going to be part of that as well. And if you have not already, get ready for our private members area. Definitely check that out. Go to the waterbigsecret.com, get on the waiting list. You will not be disappointed, especially for those who have those conversations that we can't really have here on YouTube. And they try to block those things out. So, Mike, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Roderick. I really appreciate it.
All right. So we're going to get going a little bit. Let me give y'all a little background about my man Mike here. He's the author of one of the Amazon's best-selling books called A Walk into the Shadows, which is a complete guide to shadow people. And man, when I tell you, I'm sure a lot of people are having shadow people, dealing with that. So, or sleep paralysis. We're going to get into that. So y'all make sure that you share this video afterwards to all your family and friends as well. Pretty much there. You also have 8 historic paranormal books, and he also is the exoteric tome, and then Alaska's mysterious triangle. So that's something we're going to be talking about. And we're talking to a star, y'all, because he's appeared in multiple television shows, all right, from programs at the Paranormal Historian, including Travel Channel's The Alaskan Triangle. We're going to be talking about that. Discovery's Fright Club. You know, I was from Brad Pitt. You know, I'm like, no, he's not.
Hey, you never know.
Look at this man. He's too good looking to be part of Fight Club anyway. So, Animal Planet's The Haunted, the Bio Channel's My Ghost Story, and Rian's TV. This is in Russia, Mysteries of Mankind, and so and it doesn't stop there. This guy produces his own internet supernatural based shows on Hunted Road Media YouTube channel. So make sure y'all check that out. And he's the producer and director of docuseries The Shadow Dimensions, and that's available on several streaming platforms. And so it's our honor to have you here. Period, man. Period. You know.
Yeah, again, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And you've been on a few of those yourself.
Yeah. Been on. In fact, I'm glad you said that, because I do try to do a little self-promotion. So
go for it.
You just remind me real quick. So if you do want to find a little more taste of Roderick, go to George Norrie's Beyond Belief. That show just aired about 3-4 weeks ago. You want to check that out. I'm also on Discovery Plus channel, Alien Endgame, one of 3 hosts there. The future show on Open Minds with Regina will come out probably in another month or so, but you can also go to Fox Tubi, Aliens, Abductions, UFOs. I'm there. Of course, y'all know, if you have been following me, I'm on Forbidden Knowledge TV. We do a Tuesday night show there, but I'm also on his documentary Black Knight Satellites, and I have a 8-episode show on Forbidden Knowledge TV, and then Gaia, of course, I just mentioned that, and upcoming Ancient Aliens. And so definitely check that out. So appreciate that reminder. All right.
Yeah, I think I believe your episode on Gaia, George Norrie's Beyond Belief, I think that was just after mine, and I actually think we filmed the same day. I think we actually passed each other there.
Really? When we were in Colorado?
So. Out in Colorado, yeah, back in May.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man, I wish we had known each other then. We could have hung out, because we know we were probably at the same hotel, because they put all those
probably, yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been good. Don't worry, we're already intersecting. So we'll do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's give this conversation. We're going to start with the Alaskan Triangle, and I think it's a great place to start. So I will definitely got a few questions there for you, and this is all about Alaska, you know, and oftentimes people think it's just some cold things going there, but at the end of the day, we're going to look at what is happening here. And so explain to the audience, Mike, what is all about this Alaskan Triangle?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we think about triangle areas of the world, you know, first and foremost, we usually think of the Bermuda Triangle, but these type of areas are everywhere. So Alaska's a pretty energetic area, that whole section of the planet, really. But then you have like the Lake Michigan Triangle, Bridgewater out in Massachusetts. There's the Dragon Triangle out by Japan. So there are a lot of these different places all over the world. And Alaska, I mean, really what's going on there, not only do you have the energy from the Earth's core that's rising up out of the ground, interacting with different metals and minerals that are within the ground. But you also have a lot of volcanic activity, you have seismic activity, and then, of course, you know, what makes the aurora borealis is the solar flares that are coming off of the sun and really energizing that whole area. So it's really this cocktail of different energies that are combining to create a lot of supernatural paranormal activity. You have missing airplanes and ships. You have a lot of UFO activity. Of course, HARP was built up there, and I believe that was used to harness, or it was in part harnessing some of this energy. The U.S. Department of the Interior did a survey back in the 60s where they had studied this area, and they described what they called 5 different magnetic characters. And within these characters, there were different negative anomalies. So they already knew about this energy that was up there. I believe that they were harnessing it with HARP. So we can go down a lot of different pathways when it comes to the Alaska Triangle.
So you bring up the conversation of HARP, and I don't think a lot of people are really familiar with that I was looking into some research back, and I could be wrong, and maybe you can confirm this, that initially HARP was built for, or someone was trying to create a way to create rainfall in areas that wasn't really getting enough rain, or whatever, or that's the story I have heard. But and then over time, the government kind of compensated or took the place or took it over, and now trying to at some point maybe weaponize it, or whatever. And for most people, can you share a little bit about HARP? Because I've talked about it before to not me in detail, but just kind of did some study of what this device is, and I think it's high aurora or something, whatever it stands
You're
for.
right.
And
Yeah, auroral antenna. Yeah, I
yeah,
forget what the
and
entire
basically at this
acronym is.
point, yeah, and basically it shoots up energy, and so the rumor has it, and we're not starting a conspiracy about it, but that
No,
this
it
thing
already
can
exists.
cause, yeah, there we go, and that this can cause tsunamis, it can cause all kind of crazy things. So, and we'll get back on track here, but what are your thoughts about that quickly?
Yeah, it's very interesting what has happened there. It was established in 1993, so really while when I was first up in Alaska, when I was stationed up there in the Air
Mm,
Force, which was 92 to 95, they built this thing, and they said it was to study the ionosphere.
yeah.
And the auroral ray, that's where the auroras happen, up in the Earth's ionosphere. And basically, yeah, they're sending radio signals up there. And there's a couple different things that happen. One, it can actually interact with the protons and electrons that are there in the ionosphere. They have actually, in the early 2000s, they created an artificial aurora. They have admitted that they created an artificial aurora in the ionosphere, which scares a lot of people. That's where a lot of the ideas of that they are manipulating the weather came from.
Mm,
You hear those stories from. I mean, Hugo Chavez down there in Venezuela blamed the U.S. and HARP for the earthquakes in Haiti. So you have a lot of different ideas like that. But also, what happens when they send those radio signals up into the ionosphere? What bounces back is an ultra low frequency wave, and while that this is what I want to say. People have the conspiracy theory is mind control.
I was going to say
That
that next. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. That they are controlling people's minds. And while I can't say that they are giving direct commands to people with this ultra low frequency, what it can do is change a person's mood. Is really what it is.
Mm,
So they can create it can create a sense of panic in you. It can create depression in you. It can create all of these different moods and feelings that can, of course, when you are in certain different states of mind, you're more prone to do certain things. And so that's definitely a scary aspect of this type of technology. And a few years back, the government actually officially backed out of HARP, shut it down for a year, and
mm,
handed it back over to the college, University of Alaska Fairbanks. So the college controls it now. But if you think about any of our technology uh, over the course of decades, so this thing was in operation by the government for over 2 decades. What we've tended to do, take a look at your computer. How much bigger were they back
yeah.
in the early 1990s? And far less computing power. Now things are much smaller and much more powerful. So think about, okay, they had over 20 years to study this technology, to be able to shrink it down into something else more palatable. So perhaps now it's, instead of this massive 100-acre, well, it's hundreds of acres, huge, instead of being that large, maybe now it's running around in a van somewhere or in somebody's briefcase. That's a
Mhm.
scary thought.
And you think about it. You just made mention of it because I used to sell cell phones years ago, and a cell phone back in the 90s would literally take up the trunk of your
Yeah.
car. The cell, the main piece of it. And
Right.
now everything is right here. So, and you think that the government doesn't do anything without redundancy. So you better believe why we think it's there. They probably have another one much more advanced somewhere else, just like you said. And yes, I do that. And for all of you, Magneticus posted in the chat, High Altitude Aurora Research Project, or HARP.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I know, right? So we're appreciative.
It's a
Okay,
mouthful, you know.
yeah, and I know, and it's one of those things. And welcome, Diana, and some of you just hopping in on us, Renee as well. All right, so one of the things with your work on the Triangle Television show, you did discover shadow entities. This is why we're going to really get into today. And to be more common, they're possibly harnessing the power of the triangle. And let me kind of give the audience a look of where this triangle is. So this is kind of where between Canada and and Alaska, and that shaded blue part represent the triangle. That's an image that I kind of pull up. So would that work, Michael? There, Mike.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it from Juneau to Anchorage up to Utqiagvik, which used to be known as Barrow. They changed it back to the native Inuit name. So it's like about 180,000 square miles, so like a little bit larger than the size of the state of California. Yeah, it's a pretty
Okay,
big area.
pretty big area. So let's shadow people. What's going on with that
Yeah.
there?
So shadow people, yeah. In relation to, I'll say this, in relation to the Alaska Triangle, I had some experiences there in the early to mid 1990s at the Alaskan Command Building. And I say I did, but really the entire department did. And we were in the basement area of that building in a communications center. And most of the activity was actually happening in the back office area because a lot of people will say that, well, you got all that high EMF and it could have been playing with your mind. It's like, yeah, but this activity was happening actually the furthest point from all the technology down there, and multiple people were seeing this. It was kind of the office. Uh, you'd speak about it in whispers because
Yeah, the
being
water
being
cooler
in the
truck.
Air Force in the military, yeah. If you speak too loudly about such things, you're going to find yourself down at mental health. So, uh, so the running legend was that the building had once been a hospital, and that where we were at in the basement there had once been the morgue, and where our communication racks were. That was actually where they kept the coolers. But when I was researching for the book, and I wanted to get the story straight, talking about this building, about the things that we experienced down there with these shadows that were darting about all over the place. I looked up the history of the building, and no, it had never been used for a hospital. It was built for exactly what it was being used for, which was command. So then it makes you wonder, okay, so if these aren't like the souls of the people who had died and are
Mhm.
there at the morgue, then what exactly are these things? And so I believe a lot of these different shadow entities, for one, there are a lot of different things. They can be, sure, they can be human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition. They can be ETs, they can be extraterrestrials, they can be some sort of
Really?
astral projection, light being, they can be time slips. And I think this is more of what it was there at that particular building, was that we were getting some resonance, some feedback from another point in time, whether that was in the past and these were personnel from before we were there, or even of the future. They could have even been ourselves, just kind of offset a little bit.
Golly, that reminds me of this movie, Spectral. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, it's a great show, and somehow they found a way of almost maybe shadows or people's souls. They turned them into weapons,
Hmm,
and it's a
interesting.
it's a cool thing, and they couldn't really figure it out, but it was energy, and they used a lot of energy in this lab work, and they started contracting people's souls, and these souls were angry, and they would just go out, and if they touch a human, it just knocks the
Oh, geez.
knocks you out completely. So, yeah, I thought that's pretty interesting. Now, for all of you who are watching, stick around because we're going to be getting on portals. We're going to be talking about that here in a few moments too, and tying all of this in. So, Mike, when it gets down, you just mentioned something that kind of just threw out there. We really don't know what it is. It could be extraterrestrials, it could
Mhm.
be ghosts, it could be uh, the future ourselves, and why is this now? Because when we start thinking about ufology and you're thinking about all of this UFO talk, and of course, there are people who deal with the paranormal, and most people could deal with the fact that, oh, there's some ghosts, and even in some religions. But when it gets down to extraterrestrials, or now we're talking about shadow people, it tends to take that to another level. So, have you seen any mental disconnect with people where they really can't fathom the fact that the sleep paralysis could be also shadow people. You know, because and I'll be the first to admit, and I probably shouldn't say this all the way, but I've had a lot of sleep paralysis, and sometimes I feel like somebody's trying to have some sex with me or something. You know, you're like, get
Yeah.
off of me. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's really happening? And man, it's the real deal. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a real fascinating topic. Now, sleep paralysis is a real biological phenomenon in
Okay.
which the body tries to, it puts you into a paralysis state so that you don't act out your dreams in the middle of the night. That's the function of it. And I've had sleep paralysis myself, a little bit more on the more rare side, which instead of, people generally will wake up or will be in a sleep state and will wake up and will have the paralysis that their body hasn't completely awoken and is still paralyzed. I've had it the opposite way, in which your body basically becomes so exhausted that it shuts down while your mind is still awake, which is really disconcerting. Both times it happened to me, I was at work. The first time I was still in the military. So yeah,
So,
my
but
body was just so.
You can only get that when you sleep. So you sleeping on the job?
My body was so exhausted, it just shut down, just boom, right there where I was sitting. The first time I was in the military, so you don't want to get caught sleeping while on, yeah. But my mind was still totally awake and cognizant of everything going on around me. No shadow people or anything like that. I was very panicked for two reasons. One, I was paralyzed, can't move. What's going on? And the other, I could be in a lot of trouble here. So, but what I ended up figuring out to get out of it was, okay, after I kind of calmed down a little bit, let's see if I can wiggle a toe at least. And, I got one toe wiggling and see if I can wiggle another. Okay. And get the whole foot moving and worked up the legs, kind of worked up the whole body until I could finally wake up my head. So yeah, it's definitely a very scary and disconcerting feeling. But where a lot of people experience this, of course, is the classic, they're sleeping in bed and wake up. And a lot of times people will see this shadow form there in the room. And, a lot of people believe that that the shadow entity is causing them some sort of paralysis. And there is, this kind of bleed over between the paranormal side of research and the ET side of the research, because you'll see that same phenomenon, whether people are reporting seeing a shadow entity or other people are reporting an ET in the room, but they're experiencing the paralysis. Now, a couple of things. The medical community, likes to say, well, this is the intruder phenomenon. That that's what shadow people or the ET is. It's an intruder phenomenon. It's just a result of coming out of the sleep state that you're paralyzed, and then the actual thing you're seeing is a hallucination. Well, I have a hard time with that for a couple of reasons. One, people see these things all different times during the day. They can see it, at their lunch. Maybe something's walking down the hall. People see things out in the woods. I've been on many paranormal investigations. We saw all kinds of shadows, not always sleeping. And obviously in those cases, not paralyzed either. So the other thing with the hallucination, okay, if this is a hallucination out of our dream, well, we dream about all kinds of different things, not just, human figures. There might be trees or bushes in our dreams. We could have planes or airplanes, things like that going on in our dreams. We don't see those things in our rooms, right? It's always a person. So what's going on here? What's the relationship between the two? And I really think it's two different phenomena that can happen at the same time. And the example I like to use is, anybody who's been a parent of small children or familiar with, child wakes up in the middle of the night and they come into the room, and usually they tap you on the shoulder or shake you awake and say, hey, I had a bad dream. I need a glass of water. I need to use the restroom, something like that. And you're like, okay, fine, let's go take care of it. But some kids, and my youngest son, Cameron, was notorious for this, will come into the room and just stand next to the bed and stare at you. And that's it. And it's really creepy. But then you wake up, you're like, oh my God, Cameron, what are you doing? And he tells you, I had a bad dream. You need to, use the restroom, whatever. Okay, fine. We'll take care of it. Next time, tap me. Okay. But the question is, what woke me up? Because he didn't tap me. He didn't shake me awake. Well, we each have a toroidal field of energy that extends out from us several feet. And so what woke me up was his energy. When his energy
Mm.
field crossed into mine, I could feel him. I could feel his presence. And that's what woke me up. And so these beings that are coming into our rooms, whether it's a shadow or an ET or something like that, they also have their own energy fields around them. And we are
Wow.
feeling that. We are feeling their presence. And that wakes us up. And we see this thing standing in the corner of our room or at the edge of the bed, and usually our minds don't go to there's a shadow person here. It's usually there's an intruder in the house, somebody's broken in,
Yeah.
what's about to happen. So you get that adrenaline rushing and oh no, now I'm paralyzed, I can't move. And so adrenaline rushes even more, and it's just like this whole rabbit hole you go down.
Could some of these observances be some type of time slip that people are seeing or we're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating story from an individual that I talked to a while back was when he was a small boy. He had walked into the kitchen, and standing there in his kitchen near the kitchen table was this tall, dark, hooded, shadowy figure. And so,
Mm.
boom, he took off out of the room running, scared. When he was older, when he was a young man, he was in the kitchen at the kitchen table making a sandwich. He was wearing a hoodie, and all of a sudden, in the doorway, he saw this very small, shadowy figure like a child, and it boom took off out of the room. And he realized, hang on a second, that was me when I was a little kid. I was my own shadow person. I'm, here with the hood right now. It's a dark hood, shadowy nature. And he's seen this little shadow person, which would have been himself back then. So these two moments in time were resonating just enough on the same frequency where he could actually get a glimpse of a shadowy form of himself.
Wow. And it brings me to the statement, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That's what people will tell you you're supposed to say when you're having this sleep paralysis and
Right.
it's supposed to go away. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I've had that before. You mentioned earlier, that feeling of, somebody trying to have sex with you. If I had it before
Yes.
where, it felt like something was pressing down on my chest, almost like the old hag syndrome sort of thing. Although I never saw an old hag or anything like that. I just felt the pressure. And yeah, sure. I said some prayers in my mind and that sort of thing. Um, I really think it comes down to intention.
Mm.
What is it you are intending? What's that energy that you are putting out there? So your intention is to make this thing go away. And I believe that if whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is that your religion is, your belief system, that if you wholeheartedly believe that this is going to work, that this is the thing, then you will push that positive energy outward and will release whatever the negative energy that's coming toward you.
Interesting. And I know people are thinking, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience that'll be watching this now and later have all probably experienced, uh, you know, sleep paralysis. And then you hear the Hat Man, and you hear all of
Mhm,
these stories. There was a lady, Heidi Hollis. She's written a
mhm.
lot about the Hat Man and shadow people as well. And well, for me, just like everything else, we look into ufology. We go back to the temples and the history of this and how long this has been around. And take me back in the audience. How far back does this go back to ancient? What do the
Yeah.
ancient cultures present about shadow people? Since everything, our whole history, we can go back to all these things and get that information. So, what does the ancient cultures present today?
Yeah, absolutely. This goes back all the way throughout our human history. You look at ancient Sumer and some of their beliefs about different entities that they had interacted with, and there's one in particular, Alu. He would hover over people at night, kind of like we hear about with some of our shadow entities. He had no face, no eyes, no nose,
Mm.
no mouth, nothing. Just again like a shadow entity. He actually had no limbs either. So if you could just imagine this like humanoid form, hovering over you without any arms or legs or anything like that, but and also no face. He was referred to as a binding spirit. They called them udugs. We've translated that word to demon, but it's not demon in your conventional sense because there are also
Mm.
good udugs. So good spirit forms. And so what the shamans at that time would do is when somebody would encounter Alu, is they would invoke the good Udugs or good demons to do battle with Alu to alleviate this phenomenon from happening to this person. So that's ancient Sumer. Ancient Egypt, of course, they believed in multiple parts of the soul. And one of those parts of the soul was the kabit or the shadow. And while the other parts of the soul would go on to the constellation of Orion at death, the Ka in the kabit, and the Ka is the animating part of the soul, would stay here on Earth to roam around. Now, the Ka eventually would make its way off to the constellation of Orion when it felt it was time to do so. And that's why in a lot of these tombs, you'll see that false door. And so that's where the Ka is supposed to go when it feels that it's time to move on. But the kabit, the shadow, is still here on Earth, left to roam.
So basically, or can we assume, or that they're evil? I mean, they get a bad rap, or the supernatural. You get what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah,
I probably, I believe in ghosts, or I did, and just kind of a sidebar story is, someone like, well, that could be your grandmother, upstairs, she lived there. And I'm like, it's a ghost. I don't care about Granny when she's eating macaroni and cheese. I'm getting ready to call the poltergeist people. Granny got to go. So
right.
that's my fear of the ghost. But now somebody wants to tell me this shadow or whatever could be happening up there is my grandmother. So it is not something to be afraid of. So even with shadow people, are they evil? Or are we talking about people misunderstanding, somebody coming in my room at night, poking me, looking all over me while I'm sleeping, I'm feeling their energy is friendly?
Yeah, I think shadow people get a bad rap because they're shadowy and dark in nature, and we fear the things we don't understand. But they are a variety of different things, which we talked about earlier. Yeah, some of them are just human spirits. They can't fully manifest as an apparition. Some of them are, your grandmother or, somebody's Aunt Trudy or something like that. My good friend Rob Guthrie is a psychic medium, does a lot of work with pet communication and things like that. But he has this great story of one time his aunt had appeared to him at the foot of his bed, but she could only do so in a shadow form because of all the energy she had expended trying to travel to him. And she just wanted to have him deliver a message to his mother, who was still alive. So you hear stories like
don't
that.
Have enough energy to use an email or something instead of
right? Yeah, an email from the other side. But yeah, I've even seen it. This one particular building in Alton, Illinois, Mineral Springs Hotel, where we were investigating one evening. And we saw this shadowy smoke coming from down the hall. We thought the building was on fire at first. And as it was coming closer and closer, it was creeping up the wall on the right-hand side of the hall, creep back down, creep back up, creep back down. It's really bizarre. And finally, this one time where it creeped up the hall on the right-hand side, it actually morphed into the apparition of a little girl. And then we're all like, hey, little girl, come closer, closer. And
pause right there. Pause right
yeah.
there. See, that's the difference between me, myself. If that had happened,
you're out of there.
Actually, my whatever was already gone. I got to catch up with it. I don't think, and see, even in period, that's that joke, that running joke that, how we see things one way, our culture see things the other way. Had I saw this shadow thing first, I would have and if I was with you, I would have said, Mike, I'm your boy. I got your back. I gotta be the one stick around to tell a story. You go ahead and forge forward for mankind, whatever. And then it turned into a little girl, and y'all stop and say, well, hey, how are you? And look back, I'm out of there.
You're already gone.
I'm gone. And anyway, continue with that, because that's amazing that you will see this and you didn't have any fear. Well, maybe because you've been around this, but the average person would have been out of there. And then it morphs into this little girl, and they're like, hey, I'm whatever. I'm Alice. Okay. What's going on? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no. What's interesting about this, a couple different things. For one, it stopped right by this doorway, and it was a doorway to a room. This is the top floor of that hotel is abandoned. So nobody's staying up there in in that part of the hotel, and stopped by this doorway where there had been reports by other people, other investigators over the years that there was a spirit of a little girl in that room. So there were things like teddy bears and all kinds of stuff in there for the little girl. And so it was fascinating that she had stopped right there by this room where she had reportedly been seen. But the even more fascinating part of it is there are 5 of us that saw her, and we all saw her a little bit differently. So I saw
Mm,
her fully formed from her head down to about her knees, and then she dissipated away. Other people saw her fully formed at the feet, and as the apparition went up, it, she disappeared at the head. So this kind of adheres to the idea that we all vibrate and resonate at a little bit of a different frequency. The human body resonates really anywhere between about 9 to 16 hertz, and each person is a little bit different. They all kind of fall in a different area there, and of course this being, this entity, this spirit, whatever it is, they also have their own energy and vibrations. So depending on what frequency you're vibrating at, you're going to be seeing her a little bit differently. So that's why, some people go on paranormal investigations and they got their buddy next to them and they're like, "Hey, did you see that?" Even though they're standing right in the same spot looking at the same thing. And the other guy's like, "Nope," but this person did.
well, we know how that worked. It started the whole Skinwalker $22 million deal when what the Liskansky or whatever it saw, and Bigelow was right with him, and he didn't see
Mhm.
it, but it turned out
Right.
to be 22 million. So now with these entities, before we move on to portals and the strange phenomena, so everybody else stick around for that. My last kind of question with this and what you were saying, would that shadow or entity kind of tapped into our conscious and presented itself in a way that wouldn't scare everybody? Like, okay, I'm gonna tap in. I need to be a little girl, or was it a little girl? You know what I mean?
Right.
What are your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I mean, with that particular one, I think we'd had enough reports of people over the years reporting the little girl there. A lot of
Okay,
different.
so it was already a
It was
ghost
already kind of an
or
established
okay,
thing
got
with that particular one, but with others, um, like when it comes to some of the ET phenomenon, I think in some cases, they might be utilizing some sort of technology that they might believe comes off to us a certain way. Like if
mm,
an ET is using some sort of cloaking technology that they think is going to make them invisible, but they might not totally understand the physiology of our eyes and how our eyes take in light. And so while they think they may be showing up as invisible, that to our eyes, it actually comes off as like a shadow or shimmer type person or something like that.
yeah, it's kinda, ironic you said that because I did a show last night about shape-shifting and shapeshifters, and there is a guy named Anthony, Canadian Awareness. He's an authentic reptilian channeler. And one of the things he told me yesterday when I was speaking with him prior to me doing that, he was saying how even the shapeshifters, it's how our eyes can see the light in the
Mhm.
different densities of how we can see and present themselves. Similar to what you said, is that our eyes and our lights and everything, or the way we can see it. If I'm
Yeah.
saying it.
Yeah, our eyes only see within a certain spectrum, and so there are
Yeah.
many things outside of that spectrum that are all around us that we can't see. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be all right. So we're going to move into the next topic, everyone. We're going to go into we're going to talk about some portals and what's going on there. So if you guys got any questions, we're going to a little bit about time travel. We're just going to speak in a little bit of a little bit of everything when it comes down to this. And so we have Mike here, and if you don't know, you want to definitely go to his website afterwards a little bit here, which would be MikeRicksecker.com. And then we'll give you the YouTube and other information here at the end of the show from there. And so, Mike, again, welcome and thank you for your
Mhm.
time. Let's get into the portals and the strange phenomenon of that, whether it's time travel or how all of these things are used. So, what is a portal that is somehow linked to time travel?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, when we talk about portals, we're talking about some sort of gateway, some sort of wormhole from one place to another in the universe, whether that is physically. like from here to another solar system somewhere, which would be something like a Stargate. It could be from here to another dimension. It could be to another point in time. So the idea of a portal is just a gateway of energy that leads you from one place to another, and kind of depending on where it goes, it almost kind of defines its function, like a Stargate, like I mentioned. So, concerning the Alaska Triangle, we've had ideas of portals there in a couple of different ways. One with all these missing people, and the other with something like a missing airplane or something like that, where many people have gone missing. We're talking 16,000, over 16,000 since 1988. And while some of those can be attributed, sure, to maybe there's kidnappings or somebody gets eaten by a bear in the woods or something like that. It happens. It's just the numbers far too many. You've had in the middle of very public places where people have just suddenly disappeared. Michael LeMaitre in the Mount Marathon race back in 2010, 2011, and he's in the middle of the race running up the hill, never comes back down, disappears right in the middle of the race. Nothing is ever found of him.
On there?
They weren't running video at the time, which would be fascinating if they were, but never appears. And this has happened to many people.
Those that actually talk about a lot of stuff like that, right?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he has this whole series on that. Yeah. And some of those cases, the people that have actually returned, they'll talk about, well, yeah, I was walking on the path in the woods. I heard a noise off on the side, took 2 steps off the path to go take a look to see what it was. Didn't find anything. Turned around to get back on the path, and the path had completely disappeared. So, did they walk through some sort of portal that, one, maybe it took them to another part of the woods, 2, maybe it took them to another point in time when the path wasn't there. It makes you wonder what in the world happened that they lost the path so quickly after 2 steps. And so many other people, though, are not found. So those that are very, very fortunate. But like when it comes to the missing airplanes, I like to talk about the missing Douglas Skymaster from 1950.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. It was 44 people on the airplane taking off from Elmendorf Air Force Base, headed toward Montana, was cruising across the Alaska border into Canada around the Snag area, and just gone. Nothing ever heard from it again. And they had thousands and thousands of people out there, looking for this thing. Both joint U.S. and Canadian military. They were running military exercises at the time, so they teamed up. They're looking around for it. Nothing ever found. What's bizarre is there was a smaller plane a couple of weeks later that went down in the same area. Boom, found that immediately. But this big, huge Douglas Skymaster, not a thing. There was also reported UFO activity just before and just after this plane went missing. So it's like the day before and the day after. So that's really bizarre. But a lot of people speculate that this thing disappeared through some sort of portal, possibly into another dimension or another point in time. And I like to look at that other point in time aspect, because let's say it did go back in time, like back 500 years, just to throw out a number. And it appears in the air, in the 1500s or whatever. Well, the indigenous people of the area, those are the only people that are going to be around there at that time, what would they think of an airplane? Because they have no context of it, right?
Yeah.
They would think large bird, very loud, thunderous in nature. So is that where some of our Thunderbird legends are coming from?
Makes a lot of sense. But my question would be, you would think that event, though, will alter the future because now technology has presented itself a little earlier. Is that, will we have any, coincidence? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we see some of these different out of place artifacts that don't make any sense. So, I mean, these, there might be parts that show up later on. It does make you, well, and I do believe that you will have the future influencing the past as well. That we are that our future selves are influencing our past selves, which may be why you have some things like the Mandela effect that kick off. Why is it, everybody remembers things a certain way, and nope, it turns out when you look it up, that's not the case. It didn't really happen that way, but you have an entire planet believing something else. It's really bizarre. So for me, when it comes to just time, I believe time is all concurrent anyway, past, present, future, all happening at the same time. So I have something called stacked time theory, and I kind of liken it to a stack of photographs. So right where you're sitting right now, think of every moment that has happened, is happening, and will happening, all stacked up in a stack of photos. But for whatever reason, two of those moments, two of those moments in time happen to resonate at the same frequency for just a moment, and we get a glimpse of that other moment in time. So that's why some people report, maybe they see an apparition or something like that, and the apparition turns and looks at them as if they're the ghost rather than the other way around, almost like something out of the others. So, yeah, I think that's what's happening in some of these when we talk about portals opening to other moments in time. I think we're getting that connection through vibration, resonance, and frequency of those two moments in time, just hitting that right frequency just for a moment.
So would that coincide with deja vu?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Where we okay, all right. So I know people get that all the time, or you think, well, I've seen this before, or it's like I've done this already, and it's like, okay, that's fine. But since we like you said, with this plane disappearing like that, even the runner, did other witnesses like, okay, he was behind him and just saw him just go into the light, so to speak, or they just knew he ran up the hill and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the details of it. Certainly, there were some people around him. I don't think there was anybody like right next to you. Like you hear some of those stories where somebody was standing right next to another person on the path, and poof, they disappeared. Yeah, I mean, the other runner said that he was with them going up the mountain, but then all of a sudden he wasn't. So I don't think it's, at least from the articles and people I've talked to and all that, nobody has said, he was right in front of me and then suddenly he was gone. It was more of those, he was with us going up the mountain and just, didn't come back.
Well, my question is, and just I'm just throwing it out there, so let's say we think about a plane today that disappears in one of these triangles, and let's say it went back 40 years. Okay, so it was one of our aircraft today, went back 40 years or 100 years, or what I would say 50 or 60. And it just showed up out of middle of nowhere. So I would assume this could affect our potential timeline today, especially if it was reversed engineered, if the people, or are we running in different parallels anyway? Because some people tell me, like, sometimes I can try to not meditate, or to get into contact with my inner conscious layers and switch timelines. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, you're almost talking like jumping onto a parallel universe of some sort, which so that would get into like the whole idea of the multiverse and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's sure. I mean, that's could be possible. You look at some of the research that's been coming out of Antarctica with the Ice Cube Project and the Anita Project. They're showing evidence of if you can imagine this, a parallel universe running in reverse time. So what reverse time would look like would kind of be bizarre, but with the neutrinos, the way that they're acting, basically coming out of the Earth in reverse, a very different way than they're supposed to be interacting, because they're supposed to be coming from the solar system. They're actually, finding them coming out of the Earth. So very, very bizarre behavior. But so that could be a possibility. Maybe jumped into that other timeline. Some of these, if they're going back 40 years, they could be, various UFO sightings and things like that. And so, it could be a sighting that even the government picked up on, went and checked it out. Well, they're going to try to hide it from us, So yeah, there could be some of these sightings that have still been unanswered for decades.
Wow. Have you ever seen some of these videos of people supposedly just appear out of nowhere, as though they came through some type of wormhole or uh, whatever, and it just seems like they appear. I've seen these, and oftentimes, okay, we know CGI, but some of these scenes are
Right.
pretty cool. What people have captured that, or walking through walls.
Mhm.
Is that also allow for time travel? Where I mean, again, they're coming through these walls, so all of our elements is just totally different. I'm kind of trying to get a
Right.
picture, but I just
Well,
yeah.
yeah, if I mean, and you're right. A lot of these videos are going to be CGI special effects. It's really, really hard to tell the difference anymore as far as what's real and what's not, because there are some very, very skilled people out there. Um, I mean, theoretically, if you were to get your body into the exact same vibration as physical objects around you, say a wall or the table, if I could get that exact same vibration, I could put my hand through this table. But because everything's vibrating, all the atoms, within the table, within my hand, it's all a different, vibration frequency. If I could get those on the same vibration frequency, I could put it right through. So the trick is, how do you do that? And I don't have the answer for that one, but
Well, I got an
get
answer for you for
yeah.
that.
Oh, do you? Okay.
There is a. We just found that when we were going to add this to the show, we just didn't get enough information. But there is someone who actually have a patent, and maybe the show producer can put something into the chat. But she found some information, and there actually is a patent that someone patent on how to walk through walls.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, to teach you, and he's actually, or whoever it was, is going to teach that method to be able to do that. And actually, I have the thing here on the screen, actually the document that we were going to
Okay,
pull up.
sure.
I don't have it here, but I guess I could.
Okay.
But Lonnie, yeah, we actually found it, and I forget the name of the person, but yeah, someone actually out there has patented the technique of walking through walls. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. And again, I apologize to Lonnie. I know she wanted me to contact her last night and totally missed that email, but that's fascinating.
Yeah, she said the patent is
Yeah.
pending. Chat. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, there's somebody that, and I'm like, man, now that'll be some cool stuff. You
Oh,
know?
sure it would. Sure it would. And the same would go for, you asked about time travel. The same would go for time travel. Is if we're talking about each moment in time, all acting concurrently, and it's just a matter of being able to access that, going back to resonance, vibration, frequency. If you could figure that out, okay, what frequency is, how do I tune into like 1912 or something like that, and be able to tune yourself to that same frequency. I don't know how many of your viewers and listeners have seen the movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour from
I
the
haven't
early
seen
1980s. Oh, it's a great movie. He essentially wills his consciousness back in time. There's no fancy gizmo. It's not a DeLorean or anything like that. He just basically convinces his mind that he is back in that time frame.
that.
And so basically he sends his consciousness. He's able to tune into that frequency, which is fascinating. And I think real time travel will be more like that, you know um, rather than a DeLorean, or a lot of our physicists will say, well, when you get around a black hole, and I don't think we're going to be doing it, using harnessing a black hole to
Right,
do
right,
it.
right.
I think it'll be more of the consciousness.
Well, it's kind of, someone else said something, and Bonnie, she says, "What if you get stuck in the wall?" I actually thought
Uh,
about that when we were
Ouch.
talking about it yesterday. I'm like, what if you just lose concentration and all of a sudden then you
Mm.
stuck in between that wall? But there was a movie called Jumper. You remember that movie? And
I
this guy,
remember it. I don't think I
yeah,
saw it.
Samuel Jackson played in it, and I forget who the star was, but the whole concept was, and people, they was out trying to capture these people, but they had the ability to look at a photograph, and
Hmm.
using their energy, they can zap into, they can only jump into time or places that they actually have seen or could visualize. So this
Okay.
guy, he would have all these photos. This young guy, he developed his technique. he would have all these photos around the world. And when he look at that place and location, then he can jump in there. And then he started learning how to jump cars and animate items, items and everything. And so it was a real cool movie. So it's called the title's called Jumper, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so we got couple of more questions for the last segment here with Mike Ricksecker, and appreciate you being here. We're going to get into what we call walk in the shadows from there. And so, Mike, I have some questions here, and one is particular, the basis for writing a walk into the shadows, the complete guide to shadow people, and what's going on with that in the next edition of that.
Yeah, the whole basis for it was I'm an experiencer. It's something that I have interacted with throughout my life, dating back to when I was 8 years old. And you go back to, you go all the way back to the whole sleep paralysis thing. Although I was not paralyzed during this particular incident, was I woke up in the middle of the night and there was this tall, dark shadow standing in the corner of my room. Again, had no idea about shadow people or shadow entities or anything like that at the time. I thought there was an intruder in the house and, it was about to kill me, because that's what you think at 8 years old. So, I tried to scream. Nothing's coming out of my mouth. Approached my bed and leans over, and I'm staring at this blank black face. There's no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. And ended up grabbing me by the wrists, crossed my arms across my body, and then ran off down the hall, and of all places, into a closet. So by that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off screaming to my parents' bedroom, and they're trying to calm me down, console me, trying to tell me I just had a bad dream. But, this is something that I'd been awake for the entire time. I knew it was not a dream. So that was something I always wanted answers for throughout my life. I would never call it like a haunted house. The 10 years that we lived there, this is the only time that ever happened. But when I moved to the house was in Massachusetts. When I was 13, we moved to Ohio, and that house that we were moving into, unpacking boxes, putting things away, and I kept seeing this shadowy figure standing in my doorway, and I'd look at it and off it would go. A lot different than the first one, where the first one was like very solid in nature. This one was very translucent. I could kind of see through it, and it was very, very fast too. So this happened over the course of several days, where I'd be putting something away, unpacking a box or whatever. It'd show up in my doorway, and I'd look, and off it would go. So after that happening for a while, I decided to ask my mom about it. And I'm like, Mom, I keep seeing this thing. What do you think is going on? And she actually admitted to seeing it as well, which was great for me. I maybe she thought I was a little bit more mature. Now that I don't know how mature you can be as a 13-year-old, but yeah, she was like, yeah, I've actually seen that too. And she wasn't alarmed about it. So, okay, one, it's affirmation. I'm not crazy. Mom's seen this thing too. And two, she's not worried about it. She's treating it like, yeah, it's just something that's here. So it's like, okay, Mom doesn't seem to be all that worried about it. I guess it's okay. It's not causing me any harm. It's just running off. So I started calling him Tom, like peeping Tom, because he would just peep in my doorway, and I'd be like, hi, Tom. And off he'd go. So that happened for like 3 or 4 months, and that activity subsided. So I just chalked it up to somebody or something that was at the house, was curious as to who the new family was, deemed we were okay, and went about its business. So very, very different than my first experience. But something I wanted answers to for all of those years.
See, I wouldn't be having that. It's not it's not going to go down like that. And like I said, I still get every now and then this sleep paralysis, and like for me, yeah, sometimes you can feel the pressure.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's been times I can literally say, wait a minute, what you trying to do? So now, honestly, I sleep on my back sometimes, just so that I don't deal with the other side of it. Like, no, don't come here with that. So all right, you are working on a new docu series, The Shadow Dimension. What kind of research are you conducting for that, and regarding shadow entities?
Yeah, Shadow Dimension's already out. It's been running primarily on Tubi TV. It's on a lot of other little streaming platforms as well. Roku Channel just picked it up, but they haven't actually put it out there yet. But yeah, Tubi TV is running it, and so and I'm working on season 2, so that's taking a lot of my time right now is getting that edited. But basically, yeah, it's a dive into the realm of these shadow entities, about who and what they are. I have a lot of various number of people recounting their experiences with them, but also looks into the idea of we're going to different locations that have reported not only the shadow activity, but also portal activity as well. So, is there a relationship between these portals and these shadow entities? Are some of them time slips? Are they using the portals to come into our plane of existence? What's going on there? So it's not just going to haunted locations and checking out shadows. We're actually getting into a lot of the research as well. We're looking at, like we talked about earlier, the history of these different things, of where they come from out of ancient history, and how they relate to energy, resonance, and vibration.
Well, can some of these shadow things be caught on film? If you just kind of set up and catch them,
Mhm.
or are they aware that this film is running and
Yeah.
avoid it?
On occasion, people do capture them on film, and just like with any other type of supernatural paranormal activity, it can be very hard to capture. But yeah, I've captured a couple on film, and I share a little bit of that within the Shadow Dimension docuseries, as well as in my book, A Walk in the Shadows.
Okay. So, last question.
Mhm.
Since so many people see shadow people, are there different shadow entities, and are they different characteristics? Because you hear some people say it's wearing a hat, the hat
Right.
people, or this was a tall stick figure, and then of course could be small at the bed. So what's going on with this? And so are these entities different types, or are only we seeing what they want us to kind of see, or what we kind of could accept, or what's really happening with all the different characteristics?
Yeah, and there's a lot of different types, and we kind of talked about earlier how they're what they actually are, whether it's a human spirit or an ET or something from another dimension, an interdimensional being, and those are all different types. Well, they're all going to look different too, depending
Mm.
on who they are. So yeah, you have your basic humanoid figure, which is kind of the most common. You have your hat wearing ones, and they even wear different hats. You have some like wear fedoras with with a trench coat. Others are top hat with or without the cape. Some
Now,
of
would their
report
clothing dictate the time where they died from? If they're wearing these,
well.
these pilgrim looking stuff, are they from, I'm not trying to isolate that, but you get what I'm saying.
Right. No, I
I'm
get it. I get it. Yeah, and it's hard to know unless you interact with the same entity over and over again and get some information about them.
mm,
Because yes, it could be a human spirit who died in that clothing, or maybe it was their favorite clothing, and they keep appearing like that, but only come off as a shadow. But could also be some sort of other entity that is trying to disguise itself in some sort of human attire. Other people believe that the hats are some sort of technology. So there are a lot of different theories as to
mhm,
what that stuff is. But then other shadows appear as mists and wisps, um, just vaporous forms. I talked about the shadow smoke forming into the apparition of a little
sure.
girl. Sometimes it just stays as a smoke. You hear about crawlers, which are really long, spindly things that just, crawl along on the floors, walls, ceiling, that sort of thing. Of course, you have your hooded figures as well. So yeah, there's a large variety of these different things.
Wow. Okay. All right. So what's next? Anything in particular we can get down to? Um, well, let me bag up for
Yeah.
you have my last couple of questions here. One in
Yeah.
particular is, give me, or anyone, because that's the title of the video was, is there any connection between shadow people, sleep paralysis, so we can kind of close it out in that area?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, there's a relationship there, but I do believe that they are two different phenomena that can happen at the same time. But
Mm,
it happens often enough with people that yeah, there's certainly a relationship there. Yeah.
okay. All right. So we can find him on Facebook, and
Mhm.
that is Mike. Ricksecker Official, right?
Yeah, that's the official link. Yep. Or
Okay.
MikeRicksecker.com is my
Yeah.
official website. And then I have
And
my
you got
learning
Twitter.
portal, connecteduniverseportal.com.
All right. And then you have is that your channel, the YouTube, the Haunted Road Media?
It is. I just rebranded it. You can still get to it through youtube.com/haunted road media. But I've just rebranded it to the Mike Ricksecker channel because I deal with so many other things than just, the paranormal and hauntings and all that.
That was,
So.
yeah, I ended up with, it was Why the Big Secret. Then I had to come back and add Roderick Martin's Why the Big Secret. And
Okay.
eventually Roderick's Martin, you have to kind of, so, because I like to talk about some conspiracies, different things. Because my whole motto, we all know what's happening and how, but the why is the most important.
Yeah.
So,
And mine is essentially, everything is connected because of, the Connected Universe portal. So we're talking everything, so, sky's the limit there. So I get it.
all right.
Yep.
Well, you've done so much. I am a UFO investigator. So give us your interpretation of this UFO thing and this disclosure, and we'll get out.
Oh, Mike Gallagher's my new favorite congressman from the
I tell everybody he's the hero,
Oh, I know.
Everybody, he's a hero. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I loved that. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely something going on. I think over the years, the government, of course, was trying to suppress all the information that they had. But I think technology has gotten to the point now we're all walking around with cameras that are extremely good. So they can no longer deny these different things with the number of people that are coming up with some extremely good footage. So they have to at least pretend that they're going to, look into what's going on there because they can't fully deny it anymore. So it's little by little we're getting there.
I tell people real quickly, Mike, that we're pushing for disclosure and everybody's really acting like that's what they want. But could you imagine getting off an airplane and handed a brochure and says, that turbulence you just felt while you was up there, it was a UFO, came UAP, it flew underneath, turn off some instrument panels, but it didn't crash. But we got to give you this disclosure. It's okay. Or before you get on the flight, well, last flight 2283 ran across 3 UAPs and they zipped across. But because you want disclosure, just want to let you know, have a nice flight.
Well,
I want that.
Just get the UFOs coordinated with air traffic control and we'll be fine.
Okay, we're going to go with that. Everyone, this is Mike Ricksecker, and man, it was a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you so much, Roderick.
Appreciate it. And I'm going to give you a call later. There's a few things I'll chat with you. I got your cell phone and we'll connect. It'll probably be about an hour if you're available. I'll give you a call.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Thank you for coming. All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. There you go. You had a great conversation with Mike there. And as always, if you are experiencing the shadow people, then I will take that you understand and rewatch this video so you can get a little more information. If you got anyone else that's experiencing shadow people, or if they're experiencing sleep paralysis, there's a lot of details in this. And so I just really think that it just really, I don't know, because I experience it myself as well, and we all do. So it's one of those phenomena that now we can connect some of the dots. Make sure you share the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. We have a couple of more shows. You want to come here this Friday at 3 p.m. We're going to have a great show Friday with a gentleman that really talks about some of this phenomenon in a great way. So I definitely want you to be able to be part of that as well. In fact, I was kind of looking for his information, and maybe Lonnie put down who's the show with Friday. My mind is frozen. Dr. Sheriff, Sheep, or whatever, or Sheep. Y'all see it down there. Y'all pronounce that. My tongue twisted. But we're going to be talking to the doc on Friday at 3 p.m. You do not want to miss that as well. We would do that. And so with that being said, it's been a plum-pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege serving you today. I'm Roderick Martin, host of Why the Big Secret YouTube channel, and here and definitely from there. So show the love, and we're going to get out of here. And I will see you on Friday. So y'all be ready on Friday. And end the broadcast. I just decided to just end it for you.